Welcome back to the channel from Morocco and the picturesque high desert town of Quarzazate. Even if you've never heard of this place, you may have seen it in one or another movie as a shooting location for such films as Lawrence of Arabia, The Mummy, Gladiator, The Last Temptation of Christ, Kingdom of Heaven. The list goes on and on. Quarzazate is about a 4.5-hour bus ride from Marrakesh on the south side of the Atlas Mountains, a high desert town in the middle of nowhere. It's surrounded by spectacular scenery and cultural landscapes, including the incredible 1,000-year-old settlement of Ait Ben Hadou in the desert wilderness to the northwest of here. Despite its isolation, or maybe because of it, Quarzazate is home to several large motion picture studios that for years have drawn foreign film companies attracted by the gorgeous high desert locale surrounded by exotic rock formations. I'm at the Quarzazate Cinema Museum that celebrates the long tradition of filmmaking here. This museum, which opened in 2007, is on the site of an old Italian studio that churned out spaghetti westerns, horror films, and biblicals half a century ago. And if you think it's unusual that I seem to be in a very pleasurable little Middle Eastern garden, that's only coincidence. Practically everything here is ersatz. This museum is basically a hodgepodge of leftover set pieces, faux palaces, costumery, and antiquated filmmaking equipment left over from dozens of productions here. For the equivalent of $3 US, you can take a peek at memorabilia from films that you may have never imagined originated in the Moroccan desert. Old studio buildings whose purpose could shift with going through an opening, as I just did. There's no telling how many films have used this spot. I suppose it could be researched and one could find out, but indeed this is called the throne room. There's not a lot of financing that has gone into this. This is more or less what's left over from past movies. You would think I was in the halls of some great mosque, but no, it's a fake mosque and a fake courtyard. At least the storks like it. I don't know, you see a lot of storks planting their nests in high places in this part of the world, but in this case, they've chosen the cupola of a mosque. That's in quotes. A movie mosque. Old costumes sort of drying out in this dry heat inside this place. From what movie? Who would know?
No promotional consideration, as always, but I couldn't be happier with my apartment at the residence Bab el Janoub. Super comfortable, with not one, but 3 bedrooms, and with enough sofas in the family room to seat a small army. Although there's a fully equipped kitchen, I have the landlady send up a huge and delicious breakfast for about $5 US. And to top it off, I've mostly got the rooftop terrace to myself.
At its core, this is a Berber town, although its makeup has changed since the mid to late 20th century following its role as a film center. Long before that, it was a remote high desert crossroads for African traders on their way to northern Morocco and Europe. And as with most settlements in the region, it had a kasbah, or fortress, of the kind the Berbers were famous for building. In fact, I've just entered one of those kasbahs. This is the Tariat Kasbah, built by a Berber clan in the 1700s and expanded under another powerful Berber family in the 1800s. In fact, a member of that family served as a puppet ruler in Marrakesh with the title of Pasha of Marrakesh for the entire time that Morocco was colonized by the French from 1912 to 1956. When the French left, this kasbah was gradually taken over by squatters and began to decay. Some families still live in part of it, but overall it's been a different story since UNESCO became involved in restoring it in the 1990s. And not coincidentally, the movies have made great use of it.
Hey friend, hello. This is a very old synagogue, look.
These days you're free to roam around it here as you please. Well, at least until recently. The September 2023 earthquake that devastated villages in the High Atlas Mountains not far from here damaged this kasbah, collapsing some of the mud brick buildings. So there are parts of it that are still closed off. The 2023 earthquake did do its damage here. In some cases, as in this one, an entire home just crumbled off. Walls in front of it just peeled off, created a mound in a small plaza area. But that's the nature of this adobe construction. I'm walking under the house, or the large structure I should say, that collapsed at one end, but the walkway tunnel survived, and I'm trying to see where it leads me, and the short answer, it leads me to a dead end. That is the thing about these old kasbahs and medinas. You're free to walk around in them here, but best know where you're going, unless you want to spend some extra time getting there. Well, that tuk-tuk is in good condition. I just can't imagine there being a need for it here in this kasbah for a couple of reasons. One is that most of the streets are too narrow for it. And the other is that there just aren't many people walking around here. In some ways, this kasbah is a rather sad place, because there's a sharp divide between those who have and those who have not in this part of Morocco, especially in a town that's famous for its motion picture industry. But these people are living in an old community. Many of them have been here for many generations, and there are at least It is said 350 families living in this Kasbah. They don't have much, and of course when you walk through here, you are likely or not accosted by people who simply want to sell you something, primarily provide information for money or take you on the quote-unquote sights of the Kasbah. Just another stark reminder of how different reality is for people in a small community like this, especially in this part of the world.
They don't call Quarzazate the door of the desert for nothing. Besides being a place to kick back under eternally blue skies, it's a jumping-off point for the Sahara as you get closer to the Algerian border. It's also a stepping stone to my last destination in Morocco on this tour, the fabled desert settlement at Ain Ben Hadou,